In the thick of night, when the world retreats into shadows and silence, ancient African villages did not sleep without guardianship. They believed that when the human eye failed to see, another force took over, one that didn't slumber, didn't blink, and didn't forgive. This was the domain of the Night Watch, the god of security, a presence whispered about in reverence and fear. He wasn't a god who appeared in blazing chariots or demanded temples. No, he was the unseen sentinel, the sacred protector of the village, the enforcer of safety in a world without alarms. His footsteps were never heard, yet everyone knew he walked the perimeters of every home, every heart, every fire still burning through the dark. But what made this deity so feared? Why did rituals meant for him always revolve around hygiene, fire, smoke, and silence? Why did every act of nighttime reverence double as a form of disease prevention and communal safety? There are gaps in our modern understanding, but clues lie deep within the rituals and myths, the practices that ensured survival in a world without medicine. Long before science could name bacteria, these people knew decay had a scent. They knew unwashed hands brought death, and they believed that when someone disrespected the order of health, they weren't just inviting sickness, they were defying the Night Watch himself. To ignore his silent warnings was to summon consequences, not just physical, but spiritual. It was a defilement of balance, an insult to a force greater than flesh. This is not merely a myth. It is a story of encoded wisdom, of spiritual law intertwining with survival instinct. Tonight, we peel back the curtain of centuries and step into the realm of this forgotten guardian. And maybe, just maybe, we'll uncover the powerful truth hidden in his shadow. They say the Night Watch was not born but awakened, called into being by the collective fear and love of a people desperate to protect what daylight could not. In the earliest days, before borders and maps, when nature itself was still wild and spirits roamed untamed, the people cried out to the skies for help. Animals hunted in the dark, thieves moved like shadows, illness crept unseen, and the night swallowed the weak. From this chaos rose a force that answered not with words, but with presence, the Night Watch. He was known by many names across tribes, none spoken after sundown. His story echoed in fireside chants and midnight prayers. They told of a figure who walked with the winds and watched with the stars. Some said he took the shape of an owl, others a cloaked warrior made of wind and ash. But always, he arrived when the sun dipped low and did not leave until the horizon burned orange again. He did not command armies or strike with fury. His strength was in order. Homes had to be swept, ashes had to be properly disposed, waste had to be buried, water covered, food secured. These were not mere customs. They were sacred duties, failures that would earn you his disfavor. And his disfavor was whispered to bring with it sickness, curses, and sometimes silence. Entire families had vanished in the tales, cursed by their neglect. Yet, he was not a god of punishment. He was a guardian, a being whose laws, though silent, protected. Mothers taught their children to whisper thanks before sleep, and men left offerings at the edge of the compound, simple things like salt or smoke, symbols of cleanliness and vigilance. The Night Watch was feared, but more than that, he was trusted. For every night he walked, fewer dangers came. Predators stayed away, fires didn't break out, children woke up unharmed. He was the veil between chaos and order, the god who demanded no shrine but lived in every act of care. And in doing so, he became not just a myth, but a pillar of survival, a divine contract of safety born from the understanding that cleanliness, awareness, and respect were not only virtues, but armor. The story of the Night Watch was not just one to be told. It was to be lived, every night, by every soul. As dusk painted the sky in blood and gold, a sacred transformation began. The village shifted, voices quieted, movements slowed. The rituals of the Night Watch were not grand ceremonies, but woven into the fabric of survival. Every act, however small, became a form of worship, a silent pact between the people and the unseen god who walked their perimeters. Before nightfall, fires were smothered with care, not fully extinguished, but reduced to embers that would not leap unpredictably into flame. It was said that a wildfire in the night meant the Night Watch had turned his face away. Mothers scrubbed their children's hands and faces with water infused with herbs, bitter leaf, neem, ash, and salt, meant not only to cleanse but to shield. Doors were shut not with locks, but with intent. A quiet prayer whispered beneath the breath, barely audible, was considered a stronger seal than any bar of iron. Offerings were subtle, a pinch of salt at the threshold, a smear of ash on the forehead. Smoke trails lifted toward the stars from carefully chosen woods, some fragrant, others acrid, each selected for its purifying essence. Children were forbidden to play barefoot after dark, not just for safety, but because it was believed the god despised heedlessness. To run carelessly into the night was to mock his vigilance. Healers and elders performed what looked like common routines, burning certain leaves, sweeping compounds from the center outwards, covering open pots, not knowing that these were acts of public health long before the term existed. But to them, it wasn't sanitation. It was reverence, a spell of protection cast nightly through discipline. Silence, too, was sacred. After the third bird call, known only to the oldest women, no one spoke unless it was urgent. The night watch listened, and those who disturbed his silence were believed to attract not only his ire, but the wandering spirits he kept at bay. In these nightly rituals, the divine and the practical became indistinguishable. Protection wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, communal, and deeply intentional. Each act said, "We are awake, we are aware, we are worthy of your protection." And in return, the night watch stayed. In the layered rituals of the night watch, what seemed like superstition was, in truth, a blueprint, a hidden code of health encoded in fear, reverence, and repetition. The divine instructions whispered through generations were not merely spiritual, they were practical, biological, life-saving. Consider the smoke that curled skyward every evening. It wasn't just an offering to appease a god, it was a natural insecticide. The herbs burned, leaves of eucalyptus, bitter cola bark, dried neem, drove away mosquitoes and other disease-bearing insects. Entire generations may never have known the word malaria, but they knew that homes without smoke saw more sickness. The ash used to mark thresholds and foreheads was not random either. Wood ash, rich in lye, is a natural antiseptic. When mixed with oil or water, it disinfected wounds, hands, and cooking spaces. What appeared to be mystic body art was in fact a barrier against invisible threats. The salt laid at the entrance of homes absorbed moisture and purified spaces, deterring both animals and decay. Even the taboo against nighttime waste disposal had a health logic. To leave refuse unburied or uncovered after dark wasn't just disrespect, it attracted disease, predators, and pestilence. But under the name of the Night Watch, it became a sacred law. And sacred laws were obeyed with a devotion no science book could command. The silence enforced after nightfall served more than reverence. In quiet, sounds of distress or danger could be heard clearly. A child's cough, an animal's scream, a stranger's footstep. These were warnings that could not be missed. It was community surveillance woven into ritual, a cultural immune system activated by myth. What modern medicine now proves, the ancestors intuited. The Night Watch was their microscope, their vaccine, their code of conduct. His laws were not written in books, but etched into rhythm and rhyme, into songs hummed while sweeping, into the cautious way food was stored. Hygiene was not a lecture, it was worship. Cleanliness was not preference, it was law. And safety was not policy, it was survival encoded in divine command. The Night Watch, in his mystery, made people better stewards of their space, their bodies, and each other. Not by threat, but through story. Not by force, but by faith. The world turned. Borders were drawn, flags were planted. And with colonization came the gods of another kind. Gods in coats, with pens and charts, who spoke of germs and hygiene as if they had just discovered them. The whispers of the Night Watch were drowned by the sirens of clinics. Rituals once seen as sacred were rebranded as backward, primitive, even dangerous. The healers were silenced first, their knowledge dismissed as superstition, their herbs and smokes replaced with tablets and vaccines. The sweeping, the silence, the ash, none of it fit into the sterile logic of Western medicine. Generations were told to forget what their ancestors knew. Forget the songs, forget the salt, forget the God who walked in darkness and demanded order, not because he was jealous, but because he protected. But forgetting came with a cost. In many places, as belief in the Night Watch faded, so too did the behaviors he had enforced. Fires were left burning unattended. Waste piled in corners, water sat stagnant uncovered. And with that neglect came sickness, not mythical, not magical, but microbial. The illnesses that once haunted the shadows now had names: cholera, dysentery, malaria, typhoid. The people were offered pills but not memory, clinics without context, medicine without mythology. The spiritual thread that had once stitched health into culture was severed. Communities were left with a choice: abandon the old ways entirely or walk a new path, one where myth and medicine could exist not in conflict, but in conversation. And yet, in the silence of remote villages under starlit skies, the old songs are sometimes still heard. In hushed voices, some still leave ash at the doorway, still whisper to the shadows, still light the smoke before sleep. Because even in the age of science, there are those who remember. The Night Watch was never superstition. He was wisdom wrapped in story. And some stories are too powerful to die. The tale of the Night Watch is not just one of gods and ghosts, it's a mirror. A reflection of how deeply human beings have always sought to protect each other, even before we had names for the threats we faced. In his silent patrols and sacred laws, we see a civilization that understood the fragile thread between life and loss, a culture that transformed danger into ritual, cleanliness into law, and care into worship. He may not appear in textbooks, but his legacy lives on in instincts we don't question. The reflex to clean before eating, the urge to hush when the night feels too still, the superstition that warns against leaving dishes overnight. These aren't just habits, they are echoes of ancient reverence, of divine instruction disguised as everyday life. And as we move forward, building hospitals, coding health apps, and mapping genomes, perhaps we must also look backward. Not in rejection of science, but in recognition of its roots. Because in the folds of myth, there is memory. And in memory, there is meaning. The Night Watch reminds us that protection has never been passive. It is earned, maintained, and respected. Whether through ritual or research, the goal has always been the same: to keep each other safe, to stand watch even when no one sees. So the next time you light a candle, wash your hands, or close your door with care, think of the God who once walked beside us in the dark. And if you still the noise around you, if you really listen, you might hear him yet. The shadows are never truly empty. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that myth still has something to teach us. The gods may sleep, but their wisdom doesn't.